and distribution line workers across the eastern half of the Illuminating Company territory, which also includes Ashtabula County. Tom?
Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you for having me today. We appreciate the opportunity to come and maybe give you the opportunity to learn a little bit more about FirstEnergy and the Illuminating Company. And I've got some slides here to sort of give you some facts and figures. I'm willing to answer questions anytime you want. I do this kind of informally. I'm not going to read the slides to you. I'll just sort of talk to them. And then when I'm done, if you have any questions at all about our company or our industry or anything that I can do to help, please don't hesitate to ask. Okay? So with that, we'll get started. So this is about FirstEnergy, which is our corporate company, and the Illuminating Company is one of the companies in FirstEnergy. As I would assume you all know, it's headquartered in Akron, Ohio. I do believe right now we are the second largest investor-owned electric utility in the United States. Over 6 million customers. You can see a lot of revenue, a lot of assets, and quite a few employees throughout all of FirstEnergy. So this talks about some of our generation up top. We have approximately 14,000 megawatts of generation. That is a serious amount of generation. Serves, as you can see, 10 different operating companies. The regulated side, just so that I clear up, right? The generation side of an electric utility is not regulated. It's an open market system. Everybody here should have the ability to choose who generates their electricity, right? The regulated side of a utility is the side that delivers the electricity to you. So as you see up there, the regulated generating capacity is 3,800 megawatts. And the way I would interpret that is that's what it kind of takes to serve our customers across our footprint that choose FirstEnergy generation. Okay? Again, 10 electric utility operating companies, 10 companies like the Illuminating Company are part of FirstEnergy. Some are a little bigger in geographic area and or customer size. Some are smaller. They range from Toledo all the way over to New Jersey. So it does cover 6 states, and they're listed up there. 65,000 square mile service territory. That is a huge service territory. But with 10 operating companies, we feel very capable of serving our customers there. This bottom bullet, when you think about that, I'll just tell you, I grew up early in my career. I was a lineman. I learned to climb poles and climb steel towers and would go up there, and I miss those days actually. It looks nice at the top of that tower. But, you know, I learned how to go up and fix that stuff. And when you see how labor intensive it is to build and fix the electric system, and you look at how many miles of transmission lines and distribution lines, that's a phenomenal number to me. Just to be clear, and I don't ever mean to insult anybody, I'll tell you very briefly the difference in our world between transmission and distribution. Transmission lines are high voltage lines, typically 69,000 volts and above, and transmission is used to ship electricity from point to point, not necessarily to distribute it. It's just to get it from point to point. I don't want to get into electrical theory, but the further you send electricity, it has what's called line loss, and you lose a little bit of the voltage. So that's why we do it at high voltage. And then the distribution lines are the lines that you see in the neighborhoods here on the wooden poles and that feed our houses and our businesses. So that's a short description of the difference between transmission and distribution. So this is our footprint at FirstEnergy. Pretty large footprint. You can see it's not completely contiguous, but it does spread through those operating companies that are named up there. I'm sure oh, there's a pointer on here, I think, right? Here's the Illuminating Company right up in here. Not as big a footprint geographically as some of these companies, but much higher density of customers, of course. So, and that shows you how many customers we have in each state. That's a lot of customers. That's a lot of customers. So now about the Illuminating Company. We do serve 745,000 customers across those 5 counties. Being in the electric business, it's always, and I'm biased, I would suppose, but it's always impressed me at how relatively cheap electric can be, right? So for $120 for an average monthly bill for a household, I mean, that's not bad when you consider everything that is fed by electricity, right? I mean, in my house too, the refrigerator's running continuously. You know, if you've got gas heat, the electric blower's running, or the air conditioner, and lights. You know, my wife, I have a bad habit of leaving the lights on, and you know, she has that saying, you know, you'd think you'd work for the electric company or something. Maybe you'd think to shut them off, but I mean, you could actually turn on a light bulb. You know, if you had one light bulb in a building and left it on all month, it would cost you $1 or 70 cents or something like that. It's relatively cheap. So anyway, here at the Illuminating Company, it is a 1,600 square mile service area. Again, very highly populated and high density of customers, 848 employees. And our Ashtabula County contact is Wendy Zeely right here. For those of you, and I think a lot of you probably already know Craig Raymond. Craig is our customer support person out here in this area. If I could, I'd just like to introduce 2 other people that are at the table with me. Dave Dillon, who actually used to serve this area, so I suppose you know a lot of people. And Kim Wolf. Kim Wolf works at our Ashtabula line shop, which is on, I always get this confused, South Ridge Road West, okay? It's confusing to me, but I can always find it. But, you know, Kim is actually in charge of all of scheduling all of the work for that line shop. That line shop, I can't remember exactly, has 39 or 40 linemen that work out of there, in addition to troublesmen who work around the clock, single crews. Kim does a fantastic job of juggling all of the priority work, and she's the one who gets it scheduled. So when I need like a job done really quickly, or these folks need a job done really quickly, we call Kim. She is, she's one of those people who does the real work, I call it, and gets the real work done. So I did thank you for coming, Kim, and all of you. I do appreciate it. Okay, so I'd like to talk a little bit about FirstEnergy's Energizing the Future initiative. As you can see, this is a huge investment in our transmission system. Now, if I could just for a moment, just to explain, as I told you before about what transmission does, if you don't have a transmission system that is extremely reliable, you will not have a distribution system that's extremely reliable, because the transmission feeds the distribution, sends it to substations, we drop it down to lower voltages where we can run it down the streets and send it to our customers. You know, across the United States, FERC, which is the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, which basically oversees transmission lines, is encouraging every company to invest heavily in their transmission systems. When there are large interregional outages, it's typically because a large part of the transmission system was lost. So we're investing a lot of money there, and we're doing this across all 10 operating companies at FirstEnergy. And you can see the goals. By the way, $4.2 billion investment is, that's a lot of money to me. I still, you know, I don't know. I look at those Powerball things and say, wow, 20 million, what would I do with that or something? So 4.2 billion, a lot of money, but it's very costly to do this work. Having done this work is very, very costly. This is an extremely dangerous business, and there are dangers not only including sometimes working with live electricity, but working on heights. And it takes a long, you know, those towers I showed you before, typically for us to climb a tower like that, maybe 250 feet high, a 5-man crew, we'd have to go up and we'd have to ground it. Just to get up there, get the grounds, which are big heavy wires that you ground the system, probably take us 3 or 4 hours before we could turn a wrench that day. So the other goal, of course, is to meet the future energy demands of our customers. The more vibrant and robust a transmission system is, the more electricity you can send across the region. So the 3 factors, of course, driving investment, you know, get existing equipment, electric utilities across the United States. Electric equipment, some of it lasts a long, long time, right? Decades. Some Some equipment can last 60, 70, 80 years old. What we're doing here by replacing existing equipment, instead of running it to failure, we're going to replace it proactively, which costs money, but is always a very prudent strategy. So we're talking about the load growth from the shale gas activity. It is huge across our footprint, huge. I don't know, I live down near Youngstown, and I have some friends that are in the hotel business in there, and they tell me that the hotels around Youngstown are booked for the next 2 years with workers from shale gas. It's phenomenal, right? And it's an odd thing, right? Because shale gas can provide generation for electricity. So, I mean, in a way, I guess you could say they're becoming a competitor, but they need electricity too. So that's part of why we're doing this big investment strategy for that large growth in the shale gas activity area. And then, we've got, no news to anybody, we've got to bulk up our transmission system because, unfortunately, like every major electric utility, we're faced with hard decisions on generating plants. Older generating plants that are not as efficient as newer ones. There are, strict EPA standards that are being put into place that cost a lot of money. And so in light of, some plant closings, we're investing in a transmission system. Again, I don't mean to get too technical. There's two things in electricity, right? Voltage, the voltage is kind of like if you think of a water pipe. That's the push. That's the push, the pressure, right? And amperage is the actual amount of water going by. So as we lose generating stations, and there will be enough amperage, there will be enough generation across the system to serve the customers. Nobody's going to run short of electricity. But the voltage, the push the generation stations gave us as they close, we've got to replace. And the way we do that is by bulking up our transmission system. I'm sorry, I hope I'm not getting too technical. I'm just trying to give an explanation of, it's hard because, see, the stuff that I talk about up here, we know, like your business like the back of our hands, so I just want to make sure I'm doing a good job in trying to explain it, I guess. So more about our Energizing the Future initiative. The initial efforts centered on the transmission grid and substations in Ohio and Western Pennsylvania. I am a Western Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh native, and, go Steelers. But, it's fun working in Cleveland being a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. But
this year it wasn't so much fun, was it?
Well, I took a lot of razzing, and in the end, as the playoffs started, I told all my friends, we're in the playoffs and you're not, So truthfully, I don't mean to diverge, but, growing up a serious Pittsburgh Steelers fan, I tell people I bleed black and gold. The people in Pittsburgh are, here's the beauty of me working in Cleveland, are exactly the same as the people in Cleveland, We're the same type of people. We have strong family roots, a lot of blue-collar ancestry and stuff. And the Steeler fans would love it if every year in the AFC Championship we played the Browns. That is the best natural rivalry in all sports, I think. Now, of course, I would hope that the Steelers would win every time we played, but, it's like Pittsburgh people love to hate the Browns and Cleveland people love to hate Pittsburgh. So it's, sorry, Wendy, I diverged a little bit, but it said Western Pennsylvania. I couldn't resist it. So anyway, there's some details up there. When you look at that really, and you think of that, see, you see a helicopter there. Here's the thing with transmission lines. First of all, there are strict federal regulations on how high our wires have to be depending on the voltage, right? Again, not to get too technical, but that tower is probably running 138,000 or maybe 345,000 volts. And here's what I would tell you. At 345,000 volts, if I was a wire and Dave Dillon was sitting right there, he'd be getting electrocuted right now without touching me because there's a field of electricity that's given off. So really time intensive to do transmission work. Oftentimes, I told you how long it takes a crew to get up there. Believe it or not, and I don't know what helicopters cost per hour, but I know they're not cheap. But oftentimes it's a lot cheaper to do this work from helicopters. Most of the time we prefer to de-energize and clear the electric lines, but there are times when we do what we call live line work. And I don't know if you've ever heard of this or seen it. If you ever want to see an interesting video, go on and Google live line transmission work. What these people do, again, electricity doesn't hurt you by itself. Electricity hurts you if there's a path to ground, right? So we plop people down on these wires in baskets, and they actually wand on, and they become kind of energized at 345,000 volts. No problem, because current's usually what kills you, not voltage, but they're not attached to ground. So they actually become a part of the live wire. You ever want to see something interesting? Those people are my heroes. I've really never done that, but I'd like to. That's on my bucket list. I'd love to do that someday. You know, sit there and say, hey man, I'm energized at 345,000 volts. And yeah, you got to be kind of crazy to be a lineman anyway. So anyway, there's some stats up there on what we're doing. So some of the customer benefits of all these investments, you know, certainly anytime we invest in our system, it inevitably translates into increased reliability for all of our service areas, all of our businesses. We are in the process at the Illuminating Company and in some other areas of FirstEnergy of investing in what they call smart technology. Smart technology runs the gamut from smart meters that can let you, as a customer, see how much energy you're using right now. Some really smart meters can tell you, you know, if you run your washing machine at 2 in the afternoon, when everybody in the world's using electricity, that it's more expensive to do that than if you run it at 10 at night. And it's coming technology. But in addition to smart meters, there's a lot of smart technology on our lines. And what that means is the electric lines themselves can sense when there's a problem. In our industry, a problem we call a fault. A fault is something that causes the electric to go to ground, right? So a tree is a perfect example. A tree comes down on an electric line, there's a fault, and electricity feeds into a fault. It'll just keep feeding forever until you burn up all your equipment. So it's designed that as soon as there's a fault, everything opens up at different places to de-energize the line. And what this smart technology can do is, instead of having manual operations, people in our control room saying, okay, hey, I got that breaker locked out, I'm not sure what the problem is yet, let's send somebody here and see if that's a problem. This can actually open and close, de-energize, re-energize with like basically computers sitting on certain poles that tells it where the fault is and say, hey, if you open this here, we can pick up everybody else downstream, something like that. So again, this, in addition to the smart technology, it strengthens our transmission network. And this grid monitoring, that's what I've been talking to you about, monitoring the grid, what's going on our grid. You know, historically, electric companies across the United States, when one of our lines go out, and I'm talking about all electric companies, you know how we know? When you call. That's how we know best, is when you call. There is some technology that we have that says, hey, this device opened, and we know from there, maybe on this road here, for the next 3 miles, it's all de-energized. We know there's a problem from here down, but we don't know. The best information we get is when people call in and say, look, there's a wire down right in front of my house or down the street, right? That is great, great information for us. So this will help to a degree, but I would always encourage you, your families, customers, call, right? Please call. Don't think, well, I know my neighbor called. I know, because we'll ask you on the phone, are you the only one out? Did your neighbors call? You know, when my lights go out at home, one time, like a year or so ago, one of those really cold days, 14 below or something, it was about 4:30 in the morning. I was getting ready for work, and I was going to go out in the field that day. So, you know, I wasn't dressed like this. I was dressed like in work clothes. And I'm getting ready. My wife and I are having a cup of coffee, and boom, the lights go out. And I went, that's a problem, because I can tell by the way they go out whether they're going to be out for a while. And she goes, what are we going to do? And I said, call the number like you're supposed to. I'm going to work. And she goes, you're not going to work. You're going to go out and find out why our electric's out, you know? So believe me, I called my boss and said, I can't be at the meeting this morning. I got to get out and find out why our electric's out and stuff. But call. Please encourage people to call. And I know, I met Mike from the EMA, right? I mean, like emergency services are very, very important to us too. A lot of times they get called, right? and then they tell us. We work very closely together, of course, in storm activity and stuff. The other thing is that, and I'm sorry, I know I'm diverging off the slides, but you know, in a storm or outside of a storm, when there is a wire down, there is nothing more important to us than public safety. Nothing. This stuff will kill you. It will kill you. And I assume you know, but you know, in a storm, when wires are down, the cable company, the phone companies, they will not respond. If you call and say, hey, my cable wire's down in front, they won't go until the electric company goes. Because we're the only ones who are allowed to handle cable, telephone. They have real tiny DC voltage in there, but there's nothing that would hurt anybody. But we have to respond to every wire down. And that's our first goal in a storm, is public safety. So, and the best way we know is when individuals, when customers, when organizations like yours call us. So, very, very important. This will help some. This will not tell us, hey, there's a wire down on Main Street in front of 50 Main Street, right? So, and of course, we want to continue to increase our transmission capacity to handle the load growth. And across all 10 of our operating companies, there's load growth of varying degrees. If you've ever been to New Jersey, I'm not a New Jerseyite at all. I was over there, I guess, in 12 for Superstorm Sandy. That was a superstorm. I've been working in storms all my life. I've never seen anything like that. The devastation and stuff that went on over there. But they, you know, as a lot of businesses and residents rebuilt, they rebuilt bigger, using more electricity and stuff. So there's system growth everywhere, I guess, is my point. So this slide is to talk about the Illuminating Company projects themselves that we did last year. Again, for just one of the 10 operating companies, the Illuminating Company, to invest $263 million is a lot of money to invest in our system. And there it lists some of the things, again, transmission lines, brand new substation. Substation, when you build a substation, it is extremely expensive. There's a lot of very, very expensive equipment there. Power transformers that sit in a substation, depending on the side, several $1 million one power transformer to take it maybe from 138,000 down to 4,000 so we can run it down the roads. So installing new equipment to stabilize voltage levels, I talked about that before. In our world, it's called VAR support. And, you know, every electric utility is given a parameters by their commission on voltage. Now, remember what I said is we send voltage down the street, it drops a little bit, right? And so when we come and serve a business, typically we have to be within 5% up or down of 122 volts, right, at nominal service voltage. So something people not in the industry don't think about much, but we have a lot of equipment that doesn't generate electricity. It monitors the voltage and pushes the voltage up and down so that voltage remains absolutely stable. A simple electrical fact, as more people need to use electricity, the voltage drops, right? As the load goes up, the voltage drops. So as more people turn on their lights every day and that load is going up and the voltage is ready to drop, we have to have equipment that bumps it up so it stays within parameters. So, and the end goal always is that by investing in our infrastructure, it reduces, minimizes the number and duration of power outages. When I started in this business, electric going out was like an inconvenience. I don't know, as a kid, I thought it was great, and I could care less. The 3 channels on the TV, you know, we were only allowed to watch an hour a night on those 3 silly channels, but today, it's not a convenience. Today, it's a necessity for all of us, really, for all of us. So it's always our goal. We can never guarantee uninterruptible service. What's the biggest thing that makes lights go out? I would assume everybody knows, right? Where's he at? We've got a Forester here, right? Trees. Trees. You know, we spend a lot of money, I think it's on one of the slides, on cutting trees. They're not our trees. We have a handful of trees. I don't know what you have, 2 or 3 at the line shop out at Ashtabula. We trim everybody else's trees because trees are a big problem for us. I mean, we do studies to say how far off of our wire corridor should we trim. So, and again, this can be a very touchy subject, and I understand that. Some people say, you're not trimming my trees, right? That's my tree. You're not trimming it. Now, again, the commission's mandating our tariff that we're allowed a circular area that we are allowed to cut no matter what to maintain reliability. But again, maybe I digress. So, okay, so the new Glen Willow substation, which is part of our transmission investment, you can see $12 million, one substation. And I'm not going to read all that to you, but part of the reason we needed to build that, remember I talked about voltage support and the loss of generating plants, we lose voltage support. So the line from Bruce Mansfield plant, actually down in Shippingport, Pennsylvania, part of my old territory where I was a troubleman, I know right where the plant's at. We built a high voltage line from Bruce Mansfield up there to Glen Willow, and it will be completed this year. And I mean, just look at the cost. This, if I remember correctly, it's a 2-circuit, 345 kV line. So to build a 115-mile transmission line, and again, most of this was along right-of-ways we already owned, because when we built a transmission line, there's a lot of issues, understandably, about where we build it. You know, nobody wants a transmission line in their backyard and stuff, but we have to go across land to build it. So huge investment there, multi-year investment. And that, Bruce Mansfield to Glen Willow and the substation itself will provide the lake area with the voltage support needed with the closing of some of the plants. Another substation, Leroy Center substation, where we are kind of rebuilding that substation. And I won't go through all the details. You can look at it. There, we're not building, this is a pretty big substation. We're not rebuilding that. We're kind of refurbishing it. And $40 million just on Leroy Center. Again, substations are just a critical part of our infrastructure. Without them, we could not deliver electricity to you. You know, like the little transformers that hang on a pole, or maybe inside your house where it takes them from 4,000 down to 122.40. That's what's in a substation, except huge, big ones that can handle a lot more current and load. So hope to have that new substation in service by June of 16. So other things that the Illuminating Company is doing to benefit our customers, tree trimming. If you think about it, what I said before, $10 million we spend in 1 year just to trim trees. Again, they're not the Illuminating Company's trees, but if we didn't do this, the outages to everybody would be tenfold. We try to stay on a 4-year cycle where every 4 years we trim every single mile of our distribution lines to ensure that we have enough clearance so that when the wind blows, the trees aren't at least bumping into the lines. Tree bumps into the line comes off because there's a path to ground, right? So sometimes, in certain cases, if we have lines that are going out all the time, we'll see if we can get permission from owners to cut trees that are 10 feet above the lines. But as soon as a limb breaks, boom, it comes down and it shorts out the line. So a lot of money we invest in tree trimming, and every electric utility does. Replacing poles across the Illuminating Company service area, which, you know, the Illuminating Company stretches from out here in Ashtabula all the way over to Westlake, Bay Village, Avon Lake, that whole area, right? So in poles alone, we invest that much money. Replacing a pole usually takes between 40 to 60 man-hours. You've got to go out, you've got to have a machine that digs the hole in the ground. First of all, you got to call oops and make sure you can dig, right? Then you got to dig the hole, set a brand new pole in there, and then go up. And most of the time with the wires energized, you got to transfer the wires, put on new cross arms, and transfer the wires from the old pole to the new pole, and then hopefully pull out the old pole. Very labor intensive, again, and very manual work, I would say. But, you know, and we inspect, all of our poles are inspected once every 10 years. And briefly, they inspect the butt of the pole to make sure there's not rot, right? And this is for reliability and safety. As a lineman, one of the first things you're taught is before you ever climb a pole and put your hooks on that pole, you test that butt. You test it. Because if you're ever up a pole 30, 40, 80 feet, and that pole's rotted at the bottom comes over, chances are you're not going to survive. You know, it's a very, very dangerous thing. So we inspect a lot of poles and do it once every 10 years, and last year we replaced 2,200 poles, replaced or reinforced depending on their condition. And then underground circuits and equipment, I'll just tell you for a quick minute, as an old lineman, I prefer overhead wires. It's what I grew up with. Back in the 70s really is when people in the eastern United States sort of started putting in underground. And I know even around Pittsburgh, every new development, it has to be underground, has to be. Nobody wants to see the poles and wires. But as a lineman, okay, when I come out to your underground and you say, my lights are out, here's what I see. I see all your beautiful houses and businesses, and I can't see one wire. There's pad mount transformers. So it is very, very time consuming to try to figure out where is that problem? Where's that cable bad or the transformer bad? Overhead's much quicker, but I know it's not as sightly for a lot of people. Me, and I drive around the road and see beautiful line poles and wires. It's a thing of beauty. And when I drive past Pittsburgh International Airport, if you ever go by the airport in Pittsburgh and the airport's on your left, look to the right. Look to the right. I built most of those poles and wires over there. It's a thing of beauty, you know. So, but we do spend a lot of time inspecting our underground, trying to find things, cables that are deteriorating. You know, all of our underground equipment is built to be placed underground. But after 15, 20, 25 years, it all starts deteriorating. So we do a lot of inspections there to try to proactively replace equipment before it goes bad and causes an outage. So these are some significant investments to modernize our energy delivery system. I think I've gone over a lot of this already. We are always searching for better reliability. Always. It is, you know, after safety, it's our highest goal, is to provide reliable service. So, I'm sorry? Okay. Well, anyway, yeah, let me move on. That's it. That's it. I'm glad. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm glad Wendy stopped me because I didn't remember what the next slide was. So, first of all, I hope that the information I provided was somewhat informative. And I'd be willing to answer any question or try to answer any question. Yes, sir.
This may not be in your area of expertise, but we have a lot of rural poor in our county. And when they don't have enough money to pay for their electric bill, they show up at Salvation Army or at the church. What is the Illuminating Company? What's the procedure for when someone has to have their power shut off to their home? Is that something any of you know or could talk about?
I will tell you on a high level, okay, every electric utility by their tariff has programs designed for low-income people. We set aside millions of dollars. There's programs like LIHEAP that we try. I don't know the exact process, how many notifications we have to give before we shut off electric. I believe, please correct me if I'm wrong, right? I believe that for us, we should not be shutting off services in the winter months. Is that correct, Wendy? So, and every utility pretty much has those parameters. And I don't know, some of them start like November 1st through March or something like that. So, yeah, it's a terrible situation. And for the most part, you can't heat your house if you don't have electricity. So I know every utility has a lot of programs to try to help. And I know we partner with other associations to do the best we can. I don't know, anything I should add to that, folks?
There's PIP funding as well as, you know, I mean, we rely on a lot of the community organizations like 211. You know, we do give them a substantial amount of time. It's not, you know, you're late 1 month and we come out and we shut you off. We try to work with the customers as much as possible. I mean, like any large company, customer service is a little challenging and sometimes frustrating to deal with, but again, we don't come out and disconnect, and again, he is correct, we do not disconnect during winter months. So, but if there's something specific, then I can talk afterwards.
You know, I'll just tell you, I know as businesses often will give product kind of on credit, right? Hey, you know, I'll give you this, you make payments to me and stuff. Electricity is the only product that I know of that we always give before you pay. We give it to you, and then a month later you pay us for what you used. We don't say, well, we think you're going to use this much, you got to pay us up front, because, you know, inevitably some people, after they get anybody's product, doesn't pay, and the same thing happens to us. Yes, sir.
Regards to the smart house that you talked about, that side of things. In '78, there was a gas curtailment on, which probably you and I remember. But
I do.
that gas curtailment, at that point in time, everybody's afraid of the all-electric home. There was a lot of them built, and one of them happens to be that we had a DENCOR system put in, which was the load management system you're talking about. Is there a way to get back into that type of benefit again with FirstEnergy?
Are you asking, are there programs designed to incent people to install all-electric homes? Is that what you're asking?
Those that have the all-electric home seem to fall off the grid, we'll say, and the benefit side of that was not there anymore. Yet we have the tools and the technology. That probably needs upgraded, but it keeps the level of demand in the home and it does what it's supposed to do, what you're talking about. Is there a way to get back into that program for smart?
You know, I don't know. I would think there might be. I mean, I know that this was a hot button issue just a couple years ago and still remains a hot button issue for customers who were told up front, if you build all electric, you'll get an incentive. By the way, I wasn't at FirstEnergy then, but you know, yeah, so that's a very, very difficult situation. I'm not personally aware of any smart technology that would allow you to do that. But here's what I could envision is if you had an all-electric home and we got to a point with smart technology where you could agree to use the electricity when it cost us the least, right, which is usually in the evening, overnight. Even there's smart technology that says, look, well, I keep hitting that thing. If we, you know, you give us the ability to like turn your air conditioner down remotely a couple degrees or stuff like that. So there are incentives. I just don't know. I'm trying to think of how the smart technology that I know of could somehow get you back the incentives that you used to have, I guess is what I would say. Yes, Craig, please.
Some of those programs were actually grandfathered. If you had an all-electric house, you still have some benefit. There is a discount that's still there. They did run a pilot program with some of the new technology, but it hasn't really been rolled out yet. So some of those things are still being reviewed right now. So I wouldn't say they're going forever. They might come out.
Yes, sir.
Recently, I heard a report that our grid system is still very susceptible to terrorism. What's your response to how prepared FirstEnergy is to prevent terrorism?
You know, it's just such an excellent question. When you're any industry that you're part of, you know the strengths and weaknesses, right? Inherently. Cybersecurity is what you're talking about. And it is, we at FirstEnergy actually have a whole department dedicated to cybersecurity. I can't tell you here offhand how many people are involved, but these are some of our brightest people on technology, computer hacking and stuff like that. You know, I read a thing just the other day that every major company in the United States has attempted hacking over 1,000 times a week, every major company, right? I would assume ours is none different. I don't know those facts, but we take that very, very seriously. When Y2K came along, I was in Pittsburgh. So New Year's Eve there in 1999, and I was in charge of our control center. And we had a lot of smart grid stuff then and remote controlled devices. And we had been working for 2 years to try to make sure that not only Y2K didn't shut everything down, but also that so nobody else out there could sort of get in and interrupt our system. I mean, it went flawlessly there. And I am not aware of anything in our company that's ever been breached. There's a lot of time and effort put to that. But it's a serious concern. It's a serious concern. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's the best I can do on that. I don't really, I know that we have a whole department dedicated to it is what I know. So, and I have a lot of faith in them. They get a lot of support from operational people. You know, what are our critical lines, our critical substations? What should they be looking for with people trying to attack us through cybersecurity? So I think it's a serious concern across the United States for a lot of different infrastructure, major customers and utilities, transportation. It's a serious, serious subject. I feel comfortable FirstEnergy is right on top of it. I do. Anything else? Yes, sir.
Any plans to upgrade Sanborn Road substation?
To upgrade what?
Sanborn Road substation?
The substation on Sanborn Road. I'm not aware of any plans to upgrade that, but I'm not aware of any major issues there either. Craig?
If I may, actually, there's some work going on there now, Mike, and we can talk a little bit about that afterwards. There was a couple new breakers installed, part of the new technology. They can operate that station remotely from Brecksville now as well, so we can talk about that.
Thank you, Greg.
Hey, that $4.2 billion investment in the function program, is that going to make our system more reliable so that we don't have our usage outages?
Well, that's our intent. Absolutely. I cannot sit here and guarantee that you won't have outages. A lot of times, this is what happens, and I've had a very wonderful life, but my timing's terrible. Usually I talk to a group and the next day somebody's lights go out and they go, you told us our lights were going out. You know, I'll tell you a quick little story. One time back in Pittsburgh, my dad had passed and my mom, the house I grew up in, and she is a sweetheart. She's gone now too, but she'd call and she'd go, Tommy, because I was always Tommy or Tim Tom to her. And she'd say, my lights are out. Yeah, I know, Mom. I got a crew heading that way. So we had done some rehabilitation work on the line there, tree trimming and stuff. And I said, Mom, I was sitting having dinner with her one night. I said, look, your reliability should be better. Now, she took that to mean she was never going to have an outage again. Of course, like 2 days later, she goes, Tommy, wherever you spent that money, it didn't do any good. I went, yeah, I know. So that is our hope. I mean, you know, our goal after safety is to have reliable service. And I will tell you that much money will make a difference. Here's the way this goes, though, right? Everything we perceive in the world is really just from our own view. So if everybody in here, if nobody's lights go out for a year, you go, oh man, that's working, right? But yours go out tomorrow, you're going to think, well, you know, we didn't spend that money in the right place. But here's part of the problem. Nobody in the world has ever devised technology that can anticipate 100% when the lights are going to go out. You know, the wind blows, our lights go out. You get wet snow, ice. Ice is probably the worst storm an electric utility could ever have. Once you get more than a 1/4 inch of ice on our lines, it is so heavy, it'll pull the poles down too. It gets so heavy. So hopefully that's our intent in spending that amount of money to improve reliability.
Good reason for underground.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Now, you know, it's funny you say that. I think, what was it, in 2005, when Florida had like hurricane after hurricane after hurricane. So they said, everybody down there said, hey, we can't go through this, you know, every year. So they looked at starting to put critical lines underground, okay? And the amount was phenomenal. If I remember it, $2.5, $3 million a mile. And they said, look, you want it, you pay for it, the customers, we'll put it in. And it is more reliable. Now, when underground goes out, usually it takes 3 to 4 times as long to get it back because you have to sort of pick and poke and find where it's at. But yeah, I can't argue with that. Yes, sir.
Following up on what Jim's question was, okay, the power goes out, we're a company, we got 100 people, we call, they say, could be, I don't know what the stock answer is on the phone service, could be unlimited to 7 to 9 hours. We send people home half an hour later.
That is frustrating, isn't it? Yeah, that's a difficult situation. Most of the time when the lights go out, we don't know 100% why until we get a person on the scene, okay? On the scene. There's a myriad of reasons why lights could go out. I will tell you, we share your pain a little bit and maybe in a little different way, but so my dad was a weatherman. In World War II, he was a meteorologist. He did long-range weather forecasts, and that's what he did for a living. Never knowing that I was going to get into the electric business and weather was like dictated my life, right? So we have our own meteorologist who will tell us, hey, look, this storm's coming, it's going to hit. And we'll hold 150, 200 linemen on overtime, right? Because it's going to hit, and all of a sudden it just misses us. We're sitting there, it's not the same as you, but kind of similar. You know, my dad used to tell this story one of the first days when he was a weatherman in Pittsburgh, and there were no computers or anything like that, and he had, I can't remember what those old teletypes and stuff. And he predicted, and back then, the 2 or 3 news stations had to call the National Weather Service, my dad. So he predicted an inch of snow the next day. The next day, Pittsburgh had the highest snowfall of all time. They even did a newspaper article on him. You know, a great start for a weatherman, but it's very, very frustrating. I mean, one of the things I would say is to call Craig. You know, and look, whether you have a business of 2 people or 100 people, you want to know. You as the business owner, your employees want to know. I would suggest, right, to give Craig a call. Usually Craig can, you know, help prioritize work. Just let me take 1 minute and explain to you how we approach storm work, right? When a storm comes through, our very first priority is to get to every wire down that's called in, every one. It's more important than almost anybody's electricity. It really is. Wires can be hanging down hot with 4,000 volts, and you walk into them, they're going to maim you for life or kill you. After that comes what I'll call critical customers. Just so you know, I don't determine what's critical and what's not. But, you know, hospitals are a critical customer. Nursing homes are critical customers. Water stations, water pumping stations are critical customers. Police departments, fire departments, EMS, they are critical customers. And that's our very next priority. And you know the way this goes in a storm, it's not like you get every last wire down looked at and then you throw everybody at the, it sort of starts merging together. You start the wire down, start dwindling down, you got them all assigned, now you start assigning crews to critical customers. And then after critical customers comes large load blocks. If I can send a crew and they can work for 4 hours and pick up 4,000 people, I'll send them there before I'll send a crew to work for 4 hours and pick up 10 people. So there are ways, though, and that's why we have positions like Craig's and Wendy's, so that you have somebody else to call other than the contact center. From the day I started working for the electric utility in 1979, I have never called my call center. You know, I mean, of course, I have kind of an insight as to what's going on, but it's very, very frustrating because at first, that's all we can give you is a standard estimate. Wendy, or?
Well, and another thing that we've changed over the last probably 5 years is that everyone has a smartphone these days, and FirstEnergy does have an app which provides customers with data in regards to looking at an outage map of the entire Ohio area, and you can narrow it down on the FirstEnergy app to Ashtabula County, to your even specific communities. I've worked with Mike to show them so that if they receive calls saying, how long am I going to be out, they can say, well, I can't tell you how long, but I can tell you in Ashtabula County there's 4,000 customers out, and right now there's only 2 crews dispatched to this area to address that area. So something that you might want to download. I understand if you're out of power, you're not going to be able to get onto your home computers or your work stuff, but everybody nowadays has the apps on their phone, and it could at least provide you with some general estimate to make those decisions in regards to, do I send a shift home, do I hold a shift off, that type of stuff.
You get text messages.
And you can also sign up for your specific account to get text messages when, you know, things are happening in that area, tagged specifically to your account number. They will text you as well. So we're trying to come up to the era of communication technology, and those things are available on our website to download.
Well, listen, thank you all very much. Very gracious. I appreciate you being gentle with me, I would say, on the questions. And again, afterwards, if anybody else has any questions, I'll certainly stick around for a while. And Laura, thank you so very much for inviting us. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.